Hi guys. So most of us use mouses to use our computer, and I think most mouses have on-off switches on the bottom. On this one you can see it. It's right there. Right now it's on. If you click it, pull it that way, it'll be off. And it's written off on, although I think it looks backwards there. Um, while I'm thinking of it, if you like my videos, do subscribe because they'll get shown in a better focus, and if I forget anything on this video, I'll write it underneath the video or make more videos. So I try to conserve the battery, so when I don't use this, like go to bed at night, I turn it off and then turn it back on in the morning when I get up, or even if I leave the house for a long time, I'll turn it off, and when I return, turn it on. I had been flipping this mouse to turn it off and on, like it's flipped now so that I could actually see the switch. But I realized recently that technically you can turn this off and on without flipping it over. You can kind of feel, well, the switch has a little notch in it in the middle that's raised, and you can kind of feel, you kind of know where, kind of roughly where that switch is, and you can kind of find that notch with your fingernail. I found it here with my middle fingernail, and pull it one way to turn it off and one way to turn it on. And the advantage is that it saves you from flipping it over and then flipping it back over to actually use the mouse, which doesn't sound like a lot of savings, but it's always nice to save a little thing, and it can add up. I mean, if you turn this mouse off and on 4 times a day, 365 days a year, you'll be flipping it over and back, I think 22,400 times a year. So if you can do it without flipping it, it's nice. It'll save you a little effort. Now, right now I know this is on, partially because I just saw that it's on when I showed you, and I can see this blue light that tells me it's on. And I know that now that this mouse turns off by me pulling that switch to the right. I've kind of memorized that, and at first when I was doing it this way, I had it written on a little paper next to my computer, but I've kind of memorized it now. I know going to the right will pull it off, and pulling to the left will pull it back on. Now, if you're going to do it without looking, you're going to have to find it with your sense of touch, and there are other raised things under there, but nothing that feels quite like that ridge. And I kind of know in general the area. The ridge is kind of, the switch is kind of right here. So I kind of look around in there kind of with my fingernail, and I find the ridge. I don't know what your mouse will be like. As I recall, other mouses we've had were pretty simple on the bottom. It probably would be fairly easy to find that switch. And you probably would get better with practice. Anyway, I think now, okay, there's the blue light. Now I pulled it to the right, so no, I didn't pull it far enough. This takes a pretty firm, I think I got it off there. Let's, basically you put it on the side so that you can pull that way. And now I'm going to turn it back on. Boy, I'm normally good at this, but I don't know, maybe because it's the video, or because it's Friday, I'm not doing as well, but I'm getting it off and on without looking. Um, I do think I've gotten better with practice, and you probably will too if you want to do it this way. Um, I think it's kind of good to sensitize your hands to being able to do things without looking at them anyway. Um, I mean, I don't know how many things we do in our life without being able to look at them, but it comes up, I'm sure, from time to time, so it seems like a good skill to have. One problem I see here is that if you don't flip it over to look at it, um, it's possible that it's already on, and you may be sitting there trying to pull it on, and it's already on. And in that case, I don't really have an answer, except at that point you and I might want to then flip it over and see, is it already on? But it's not a great thing, because if it's already on and you're pulling and pulling, it's probably not that great for the mouse. So this is not a perfect idea. I'm pretty fastidious about turning it off at night. I just can't think of any time that I've forgotten. But also when you pick it up, if it's already on, you'll see a blue light that'll kind of warn you it's already on, I think. I don't know if this blue light will always appear. And I think other mouses have lights. It so happens this one has also a little button. I think if I ever had any doubts whether it was on, I think that button is a battery check. Like you noticed, I pressed that button and these lights flashed. I think that tells you the battery works, but I don't think that battery check will work if it's off. Now I turned it off. I'll press that button. I don't think the battery check is working, so I also know it's off for that reason. So that's the idea in general. Let me look at my notes here. I do write in my notes, if you got practice at this, you might get so sensitized that you could feel, just from the feel of where the switch is, I suppose it's possible you might become so sensitized you know if it was off or on just by that tiny difference of where the switch is, but I'm not sure about that. Let's see. If you find that you have difficulty finding the switch, I'm not quite sure how to tell you to improve at it. Maybe with practice, or maybe this idea won't work for you. You'll just have to flip and look. I suppose someone practicing could damage their mouse while they were practicing. I don't think I have. It seems to me my hands are fairly gentle anyway, and it seems to me I've never pulled it when it was already pulled all the way. But I guess you'd want to be careful about that. I don't know exactly how to tell you how to not damage it in that sense. I mean, I've given you some ideas. Maybe the light will tell you, or maybe you'll develop a feel for it. I mean, if you keep pulling it and it just doesn't seem to move, you might know then that it won't go any farther. But the problem is, in the meantime, you may have, it may stress it a bit that you're pulling it when it really can't go any further. So I don't know if it's a perfect idea. I'd say it works for me. I mean, I've been doing this for about 2 weeks, and so far it seems like it's been a good idea. I don't know if there's switches without that little notch. That would present a new challenge. Sorry. Oh, sorry. It's when this is reversed on the screen, it's sort of hard. The notch makes it very easy to find. Ideally, I'd get another mouse on this presentation and see. I may edit this, I'm not sure. I may edit this, look for another mouse and see if it also has a notch, or I may just put this up. If it doesn't have a notch, I don't know if this idea would work. I can leave that to you. Although the switch would be really hard to operate without the notch for sure. Let's see. That's about all I can say about it at the moment that I can think of. So you can maybe try it if it feels right, and maybe it will save you a little effort. Oh, I think this is off. So let me. You hear a click when it turns on and off. Also, it's kind of fun. It probably feels a little better on the hands not to do the flipping and flipping back thing. Oh, it makes you feel a little more like the master of the mouse, like you have really good control of it. If you can efficiently turn it off and on without flipping it, you can make a good rationale for flipping it. You can say, well, maybe that's easier. It only takes a moment to flip it. You don't have to hunt around. So it's just giving you an option. Yeah, I looked at the other mouses that we have in the house, and they're not the switch on and off kind. They're kind of wired into the computer so that they just come on when the computer comes on. So I'm not sure how it works with other mouses. I don't know if I'll bother to find another mouse or just put this up. If you have a mouse, I can't even say to comment if you have another kind of mouse, because I may not have that kind of mouse, and I won't know how to test to see if this idea works with a different kind of mouse. I mean, you could still comment, and if you have a different kind of mouse, and tell me if it works with that kind of mouse or not. I'd be interested to know. It occurs to me I could go to an electronics store and look at all the mouses and see if they all have switches with notches. So I may do that and splice that on the end of this video. Of course, if the mouses might be inside boxes where I won't be able to see the switches. I don't know. One thing I also wanted to mention, I was thinking about this idea of getting better at doing things where you're doing it only by touch and you can't see it. It does feel, to some degree, for most of us in our life, most of what we do, we can see, I guess. Some jobs, maybe not. The one that comes to mind for me is plumbers, who seem to me they do a lot of work with things they can't see. Like when they put a snake down a pipe. But most of us probably can see things we're working on or operating. But there is a case where it's sort of the case, actually, that in a way there's loads of things all of us touch where we can't see exactly, we can't actually see the thing. We only experience with touch. What I mean is, So I grabbed a calculator that's sitting here by the desk, and when I grab it, I can see the top of it, and part of my hand grasps it where I can see it, but part of my hand wraps around and holds it where I cannot see it. And now, of course, I'm not operating it down here. With the mouse, I'm showing people you can operate it down below. This calculator doesn't have anything to operate on the bottom. So it's not directly related, really. I just think it's kind of interesting that we do actually manipulate things with our hands, partially not being able to see them. By manipulate, I mean even grasping it, you're sort of manipulating it, I guess. Even moving it from one place to another, you're sort of manipulating it. Not to the degree that you're, quote, manipulating, unquote, a mouse that you're turning on and off, where you're actually making it do something without seeing it. But I don't see any harm in getting sensitized to what you're feeling that's underneath the things you're grasping. It's kind of interesting to me to think about what this is like on the underside that I'm touching. If I grab the strap of a bag, it's kind of interesting to think of the underside of the strap and how it feels and what it's made of and what the texture is. And technically, anything you grab, you can, even if you're not actually operating something on the bottom, you can grab it better or worse. You could grab it in a better place to move it. That's the most obvious thing that comes to mind. That there's nothing wrong with getting skilled at touching things that you can't see. Because there could still be benefits. Like, I mean, let's just say that this wasn't smooth on the bottom. Maybe it had some bumps here and there. Well, it actually does. But let's say the bumps were more prominent and maybe they made it harder to handle if you didn't grab it the right way. So if you got good at grabbing things in the most comfortable way, that would be a small skill you've acquired. Like I say, that's rather different. That's somewhat different from the situation with the mouse, but not completely unrelated. So I just share that. So I did go and look at images of computer mouses on the bottom. All the switches that I could see do have the notch to help you switch the on and off. It could still be that something's out there without it. In that case, I'm not sure what you do. It's kind of likely, though, maybe they do all have a ridge, because even if you turn it over, you need something to kind of put your fingernail on, or finger. I think it's all going to be the fingernail to actually switch the switch. Anyway, if I solve what to do without a ridge, I'll try to convey it somewhere, but it very likely doesn't exist. Some other thoughts. I have noticed that when I first started doing this, I put my finger under there. I would hunt a little frantically for that ridge. But as I did it more, I got sort of calmer, and my finger would move around just calmly under there, kind of looking for the ridge and searching for it with my fingernail. And finally I would find it, and I took a little more time to kind of be sure, yeah, that's the ridge or notch in the little projection in the on-off switch. There are other things that slightly maybe could fool you under there. So it maybe makes a little sense to slow down, but it makes it more tranquil too. Um, I should say I talked earlier about doing this might make you better at doing other things where you can't see the thing, or just more sensitive to things that you can't see but are touching. I should say though that it wouldn't be a huge change probably. I mean, after all, it is just switching a very simple switch on and off, but it might make a small change. I thought I might as well mention that one of the places you do things, touch things without necessarily seeing them well or seeing them is sex. So this might make you a little more skillful in sex. I wanted to mention that early in the video I talked about operating a mouse, I think. By operating, I just meant turning it on and off. I think you got that. I think I made it clear, but I'm making it super clear here. So I think I'll probably continue doing it this way, or maybe I'll change. Maybe I'll discover a problem, and no, I'll just go back to the old way. We'll see. But I'm sharing it to give people an option. I also wonder if doing things by touch where you can't see the thing might just tune you in a little more to the pleasure of and sensuality of touch. It's one of our five senses. It's very pleasant to touch. And I don't know if everyone's so aware of that sense all the time. In the last year or two, I've become more interested in my hands, so I'm a little more into the way things feel, the textures. I think it's possible that doing something without seeing it might tune you in, although the fact is, if you flip it and turn the switch on and off, you're still touching something. But when you flip it, maybe you're not as purely into touch because you also are looking at it. So some of your mind's energy is using the visual sense of looking as well as touch, whereas this is a little more purely touch, I guess. I don't know. I'm not saying this idea will revolutionize anyone's life, but it might I'm just thinking about some of the ramifications. And I was sort of along the same sort of. I also, if you do home plumbing, I guess it's never bad to become able to other jobs you do at home where you need to use your sense of touch purely. It's never bad, I suppose, to develop that skill of being able to do things by touch. Although, if it weren't any more effort, if it's not any more effort, it's better to be able to see it, I would think. But if it saves effort, it might be okay to do it by touch.